I'm
good
okay
with
with going
starting
ahead.
28.
Yeah. We've been at 7 for a good while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm impressed with how far we've come. We're like halfway through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 50,000 done.
50,000 more to go.
Yeah, 50,000 more to go.
Hey, I got my vaccine shot this week.
Yay.
Oh,
So happy.
I'm glad for you. Good.
Thank you. It feels good.
in Arkansas, isn't it the case that whoever wants it can basically get it because nobody wants it?
Yeah, unfortunately.
We have friends that there are like pharmacies and stuff that once they open up a crate, they have to use it all.
Yes.
And so you can sign up on a list. So at the end of the day, you can get a call and saying, come on down and get it. But out of sequence, I haven't really heard of too much. It doesn't seem real common. But we are down to the bottom of the second section. Each section had 3 levels. So have you had yours?
I've had my first one. My second
You
one
did.
is this coming Friday.
Yeah, our second one is on Thursday. So
Right.
Still got to wear the mask, though.
Yeah. I mean, all these people. Yeah, if nothing else, you got to wear the mask because how do you demonstrate you already have a vaccine walking down the street,
Yeah. Yeah, really.
So I think for one thing, they're saying that because of that, like because they don't want people who don't have the vaccine to go around claiming that they have the vaccine.
Right.
I think, I don't know, I've been a little disappointed with the way they tell, I still remember very clearly because I have a friend that works for FEMA, and they're all into the, emergency and everything, and was so vehemently posting about the pointlessness of wearing masks
Wow.
at the beginning. Because that was the party line then, that, oh, you should not, it doesn't help, because I don't know if you remember, a year ago, that was what was said. Yeah, that was the CDC saying that. They undermine themselves. Why? Because they're afraid that there's not enough masks, and so hospitals who really need them can't have them. So a year ago, if you go look back at the postings, it was all about how no, the mask doesn't.
Right.
These types of missteps,
Yeah. Well, there was a misunderstanding. They did not understand the transmission means. There was still a lot of like contact, wash your hands, and disinfect every surface. That seemed to be the heavy message until they started going, oh yeah, this is through the
Yeah.
air.
But then to like specifically tell people not to, they
Yeah.
did that, So it's sort of like, come on, tell people the truth,
We'll get it next on the next epidemic.
Yeah.
We'll get it right then.
Yeah.
We're ready.
Then, like, I don't know, with these, like how I was joking, like in Arkansas, surely you can get, as many as you want because nobody wants it. With the people who don't want it, I mean, there's a part of me that says, well, if you are so vehemently wanting to take yourself out of the gene pool,
Yeah.
what can I say, like,
Yeah.
We're all better off.
yeah, it's like, what can I say?
Yeah.
There's a meme about how, like, again, this is sort of a liberal, smugness. It was something like, the very people who are concerned that their DNA could be modified with this, should have their DNA modified.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's like can't help but kind of feel like that, but then anyway. Anyway, if all goes as planned, I anticipate to be in Nepal in May, actually. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I'm gonna take off and go to Nepal. Be there for maybe a month or 6 weeks. I don't know yet.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm just about to get the ticket, but then each time I check, I was like, oh, I should have gotten it the last time. The prices keep going up. I was like, oh, I should have gotten it the last time. And then the next time I check, I was like, oh, I should have gotten it the last time. It goes from 1,000 to 1,100 to 1,200 to 1,300. It's like, ah.
Everyone's wanting to go to Nepal.
Or something, like everyone is wanting to go somewhere, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess so.
Brunei.
The easiest to go for Americans right now is, based on my research, is Mexico. Because they don't require a negative test to land.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, of course, the United States only started that 2 months ago, right? A negative to land. So Mexico still doesn't require it. But Nepal does require it, a negative in order to land. So Mexico is the easiest place to go to. Costa Rica also doesn't require a negative to land, by the way, if you're looking for places to escape. The Bahamas does require, by the way.
So you've been looking.
Looking for other people. A friend wants to know, right? Asking for a friend. Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Hawaii, all these require a negative to land, even though you don't need passports to go to these places. But their island status makes it easier for them to require that. Yeah, anyway, if you're looking for places to fly to.
I'm looking at Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Oh.
Yeah, for me, it's Brooklyn.
Oh, Brooklyn, now is a great time to go to New York City. I've also looked at that because I was going to go. In fact, I have a hotel booking. I'll just cancel it. But hotels are half price right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. If you want to splurge, like otherwise, in a hotel that you will not want to pay for during not COVID, now is the time to do it.
Yeah.
It's like 2,000 a night becomes 1,000 a night, becomes 800 a night. I mean, if you really want to ooh. But otherwise, if you're just looking for a place, clean, safe, and, more than a closet space to sleep for a few nights. I did a booking for 3 nights. There was only $230.
It's good.
3 nights for $240. A
Yeah.
night or all together?
Sorry?
A night or all together?
All together.
Wow.
Where was that at? Where was that at?
Midtown Manhattan.
No.
Wow.
Midtown Manhattan, okay?
Crazy.
Melissa, museums are open.
Oh,
Shows are not open.
yeah.
Museums are open.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they're not crowded, right? Because you have
They're
to
not crowded. They're not
schedule.
crowded.
They're scheduling of people, so
Right.
now's the time.
It's the time to go now. I talked my godkids' grandparents who are going to the Bahamas, and that's why I know all these things, and they're freaking out because where they book with the Bahamas, this evil corporation, Sandals, did not tell them anything about all the hoops they have to jump through. So they're like freaking out right now. But I told them about New York City. So last night we booked a hotel for them for end of May. So you can book now for even for June, July, you lock in the price.
Right. Right.
And when you do with booking.com, you can cancel 3 days or 2 days before you
Right.
check in.
Oh,
And
that's nice.
you pay nothing.
Wow.
Nice.
Just lock in whatever hotel for however number of nights.
Wow.
For them, they wanted something nicer, so I booked for them like this place called Le Méridien.
Mm-hmm.
It's like right like 2 streets away from Upper Central Park, and they're paying $450, I think, for 3 nights.
Wow.
Oh my God.
It's like a king suite. I mean, New York size king suite. Okay, don't get all excited. But nonetheless, like otherwise, it's like $800 for 3 nights.
That's beautiful. That's fantastic. It's so pretty in May. New York is its best in May. It's like,
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
yeah, it would be nice. The
So
park.
I'm trying to fly out of New York because it's also cheaper. So then I can go up there for a couple of nights and then go from there. The routing of tickets are less complicated. Then it's just New York, Doha, Kathmandu,
Yeah.
Kathmandu, Doha, New York. Yeah. So anyway, what would Milarepa do? WWMD.
That's right. He would wrap himself in white cotton and fly. And
Yes, and fly. Yes,
fly.
with a face mask, of course.
Of course. Oh, he doesn't need a face mask.
No, for the sake of our beings.
Oh, okay.
You
I forgot.
yeah. As an example,
It's just-
there was a story I can share with you. So anyway, the Tibetan system of tukus, I'm sure all of you are familiar with that, right? The idea that these awakened beings, either as emanations of Buddhas and therefore have the power to emanate, or advanced beings having gained control of, where they're going to be born in order to continue their work. Yeah? So they're two kind of slightly different, but based on same principle. One is they're emanations of Buddhas, and therefore, of course, they have the freedom. Then the second is the idea that a very advanced practitioner has the ability to determine where they're going to be born so that they can continue their work. But there's some inherent tensions to this. And in fact, as the head of our order, Drigong Kagyu, Drigong Kyabgon, he said, Tibet had Buddha Dharma before Tuku system, and Tibet will have Buddha Dharma post Tuku system. That this Tuku thing, he says, it's not really doctrinally, it's not such a big part. He says it's just that culturally it has become such a big part of the tradition. And so there are some inherent tensions to this idea. Anyway, I was going to share a story about him, but let me give you sort of his take on this. He said, because I asked him explicitly one time about this whole Tuku thing. And he said, well, as Buddhists, we accept that there are infinite number of lifetimes in the past that we have lived. And if we do not break the cycle of birth and death, then there is infinite more to come. So he says that as Buddhists, we accept that. He says there's no question about that. Then he said, as Mahayana Buddhists, we also accept, on top of that layer, we also accept that Buddhas, when a being achieves Buddha, he or she doesn't just like completely transcend this world and is no longer like present or available, which is somewhat the Theravada point of view, which is when someone becomes Buddha or someone becomes Arhat, they're completely no longer implicated, no longer involved in this cycle of confusion. But he says, but in our Mahayana system, we accept that Buddhas continue, even though they continue to exist and exist in a mode that is completely different from how you and I understand existence. But nonetheless, their activities are present and active in the world. So he says, and for that reason, Tuku, which literally is the Tibetan translation for Nirmanakaya, he says, of course, we say that Buddhas have the Nirmanakaya aspect where they emanate or they are present for the benefit of others. He says, no question about that. He says, however, for the specific institution called Tuku in the context of Tibetan history and Tibetan Buddhism, he says that arose out of a particular need within Tibetan society. And he said, for the last 800 years, the Karmapa was the first kind of case of like who started this whole reincarnation. Yeah, the first Karmapa, the second Karmapa claiming that he's the reincarnation of the first, was the first instance in Tibetan history. Yeah, so he said that happened 800 years ago, but for hundreds of years before that, there was already Buddha Dharma and there was no Tuku system. He says, but the institution called Tukus, whereby a child is recognized, put on the throne, trained, all of that, he said, that started, this is not just him saying, you can look at the history. That started, he said, about 800 years ago. And he said, when it first started, only one or two of these cases, then before long, they begin to multiply and multiply and multiply. And then now he says, there's thousands and thousands of these tukus. And he said, if you look at it objectively, it overall, he says, this system contributed positively to Tibetan society. And he said, and you cannot ignore that there was an element of this system helping to bring about order in Tibet. Yeah, the notion that an enlightened being is in charge in your local area helps, he says. Because there was no centralized governance that we know of it today. And so in other words, he says, it was a mechanism of control, not in the bad sense of the word, although, things can go bad, but it's a mechanism of control, a way of bringing order, a way of establishing, laws based on a Buddhist idea. And so then he said, but now, he said, I'm not so sure if this will continue and if it has a positive role to play. He says, for one thing, the Tuku institution in Old Tibet was very much part of the local governance system. But he says, but now, Tibet is ruled by the Chinese Communist Party. So that role is not there anymore. He said, aside from the fact that they are spiritual teachers, which of course, you can say that can continue. But then, he said, but even that now, I don't know. Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering too that there's that element of like if a tulku is recognized when they're 2 or 3, then they get really specially trained. And it's
Yes,
kind of like royal jelly to create a queen, it's just like
exactly.
you get,
Yes.
and there's a certain sense of like, if you're not really tied down to a tulku system, then you can actually, if you have training, it's really open to all of us as well, that is,
Yes.
and if you're just cultivated early.
I mean, if you look at the Dalai Lama, like I always say, everybody wants to be the Dalai Lama. I mean, so to say, right? So inspiring. But nobody wants to do the Dalai Lama's hard work.
Yeah.
I mean, even until now, like he's what, 80 something? His day starts at 3. He does 3-4 hours of Lam Rim meditation. I mean, a tuku like him is doing so much practice. Me? Right? I mean, we forget that part, And now, more and more the younger generation being recognized, they don't want to be trained. They don't. And by modern standards, it's rather unacceptable, to basically kidnap a kid.
Yeah.
Or to be sent by your parents to be trained, at 3. And you're like, wait, did they choose? Our notions of choice?
Right.
Or all of that. Anyway.
Yes.
And this is about him. So there's this book called From the Heart of Tibet, which is his biography. It's not an autobiography, but might as well, because it's basically him telling the story to this German guy who then put together the book. It's called From the Heart of Tibet. Anyway, that's where his official, not official, even that, I don't think he was ever declared. The publisher, I think, made a mistake of not asking him whether he wants to call this the authorized biography or not. I think Shambhala made the mistake, I think. But basically, it's the authorized biography. But anyway, the short version of this is that he was from an aristocratic family. When Tibet fell, his biological family, aristocratic, they all left. His father went to the monastery to demand for him because they could tell that things are going to get really bad. But the monastery did not believe that things were going to get really bad. So then the managers and the regent at that time refused to give him to his biological family. So they left. And then Tibet fell and got really bad. Luckily, the regent was favored by the communists. And so they gave him a fake position called the Department of Religion or whatever. And the regent was an official. So the regent was able to officially adopt His Holiness as his son and bring him into his family. And so protected him from the worst of this whole experience. We have 2 heads in Drigung Kagyu. The other head, a couple of years older, did not get that protection. And so he was really tortured and beaten up and put in prison and all sorts of things. To this day, he lives in Lhasa, the other head, Chungzang Rinpoche. He lives in Lhasa. But anyway, Chesang Rinpoche was adopted by the regent and so protected by him. And so he went to school. But when Cultural Revolution started, even he could not escape. And so Chesang Rinpoche, His Holiness, was sent to work camp. in southern Tibet. Then eventually he escaped and trekked over to Nepal, arrived in India, from Nepal to India. But then when he got to India, his parents knew that he was out, and his parents insisted that he join them in the US. At that point, his parents have already relocated and was given green card by the US government. So because his parents, they were aristocrats, and his grandfather was basically the prime minister of Tibet when it fell. And so then his family lived in the US. So he came to the US and he lived in the US for I don't know how many years. At one point in Houston, I think. He lived in Houston and he worked at a McDonald's because he wanted to learn English. So the ESL teacher said, well, you want to learn English? You go work at a fast food place.
What? Oh my God.
Yeah, so he worked at McDonald's. Anyway, then his parents really, especially his parents, his father was Western educated, and his father was like, forget it, this is all over. You just live here, But lucky for us, he went back to India. After living a few years in the US, he said, no, I cannot. I have responsibilities. And at that point, in the 60s, 70s, it really looked like everything was over. But he's like, no, I have to go. So he went back to India and then went into retreat. When he was in retreat, so this is a story from when he was in retreat. Because of the years of working in the work camp and the escape and everything, he was physically weak. Even though he's lived in the US for maybe 2-3 years, still he was physically weak. And so during his 3-year retreat, he got very sick because of the prostrations, was very demanding. So on one occasion, when he was really ill, his fellow retreatants, together they wrote a letter to the retreat master. And basically the letter was saying, he has gone through so much and he's physically, weak. Can he be excused from finishing his preliminaries, the prostrations? So they gave the retreat master that letter. So the retreat master called a meeting. In Drigong Kagyu 3-year retreat, it's by and large solitary. Only when the retreat master is giving teachings for the next section of the practice that people would gather together. And even that, they don't interact. They're like in the same room with the retreat master teaching for a few days. Then you go back into your retreat huts and you do the practice. Kamakagyu 3-year retreat is different. It's basically intensive school for Kamakagyu 3-year retreat. People do things together. They learn how to make toramas. They learn how to do this. They learn how to do that. They interact. They meet twice a day for morning group practice, evening group practice, in between the activities. That's Kamakagyu 3-year retreat. Kamakagyu 3-year retreat is really to train lamas, to equip you to go serve as a lama at a local parish. Drigong Kagyu retreat is all about contemplation. It's your own, changing your own mind. Yeah. So anyway, the retreat master decided, we'll have an assembly because you guys have brought this letter to me. And so, of course, like hierarchically, His Holiness is the head of the order, but the retreat master in this case is the teacher of the head of the order. Right? But nonetheless, I think like in terms of seating arrangement, the teacher's throne is lower than the head of the order's throne. So there's some awkwardness of that sort, Anyway, this day, normally the retreat master, by virtue of being the teacher of the whole group, he doesn't prostrate to His Holiness within the context of retreat. But that day, he waited for His Holiness to get on his throne. Then he got down from his own seat and he made 3 prostrations to His Holiness. So everyone was like, uh-oh, what's going on? Yeah, so the retreat master got down, made 3 prostrations to His Holiness. I'm sure His Holiness was like, what's going on here? Because the retreat master was a very stern guy. Then he stood in front of His Holiness and he said, your fellow retreatants sent me this letter. I'm going to read this. So he read the letter. Then he looked at His Holiness and he said, you are emanation of Avalokiteshvara, the Lord of Compassion. We all know this is who you are. So on your side, you have no need to do any practice because you are Avalokiteshvara. And then he continues, he goes, but as Avalokiteshvara, as we know, even the reason that you are present in this body with us here is for the benefit of beings. And then he continues, he said, and me, I made even though I'm not Avalokiteshvara, he says, I have made the vow, the bodhicitta vow, that everything I do is for the benefit of beings. And your reality is everything you do is for the benefit of beings. Now today, your fellow retreatants have asked me to excuse you from completing the foundations that we are here to complete, to complete. And so he said, but given that you are the Lord of Compassion, given that I, the teacher, have made a vow to benefit beings, I cannot make an exception for you. He says, so please, fully manifest your qualities of Avalokiteshvara and finish your prostrations. And the retreat master walked out of the room. It's like, for the benefit of others, do it. He says, otherwise, what kind of example are we setting? So Milarepa would wear that too. Milarepa would wear the mask too,
Yeah.
For the benefit of others, do it. Of course, this is very skillful. This is the teacher, Also, I remember hearing one of our professors at UVA, he one time asked these older monks, like, how do you train tulkus, right? I mean, given that they are sometimes are even reincarnation of your teacher, like, how do you train them now? And so some of these older geishas, they said, one of them at least said to Jeffrey Hopkins, he said, yeah, I mean, I've had to tutor a whole bunch of these tulkus, including the tulku of my teacher. And so Jeffrey Hopkins said, how do you do that? I mean, kids being kids, He was like, oh yeah, kids being kids, They would throw a tantrum and they don't want to study. And he's like, and he said, but the geisha said, my basic approach to all the tulkus is, I'll say to them, okay, the word is, you are reincarnation of this, 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 reincarnation of this. It says, that's what they say you are. But personally, I'm not very sure. So now you have to convince me. of who they say you are. Yeah, so those good old days, where you can threaten them and you can, intimidate them, and when you can inspire them, a mix of all of that. These days, very hard, I think. Yeah. And in this biography of Milarepa, Milarepa himself rejects the idea that he is reincarnation of some great being. He says it towards the end. He said, if you view me as Buddha Vajradhara, he said, that is entirely because of your training in pure perception. Yes.
Anam Tupton did that too. He said, if you want people to be mad at you, take off your title. Because everybody called him Tulku Tupton Rinpoche. Tulku Tupton. And I mean, that's what I was used to for years. And then he just took it off. And he's like he said, everybody got mad at him.
Yeah. So anyway, Milarepa said, if you think of me, you see me, you relate to me as Vajradhara, he says, that is good for your training. That is part of your training. And he says, that's good. But if you think that I am Vajradhara, or I am the emanation of this or that Buddha, because you think that otherwise, there's no way to explain how I can be who I am today, then it shows that you have no understanding and confidence in the power of the Dharma and the practice of the Dharma to change someone. He says, I can tell you, I started out with very negative karma. If anything, I was probably the rebirth, the tulku of a hell being in my previous lifetime, that I'm born into a situation where I was forced to commit wrongdoing, even cause murder in order to avenge my family, resentment of my relatives. And he said, but because I took refuge in the Dharma, then in a single lifetime, he said, I change into what you see me today as. In other words, he said, like, you see me as Vajradhara, don't say, oh, because I'm the emanation of Vajradhara. But do say, oh, this is the power of applying the Dharma. So Milarepa, for sure, he rejects that. So the compilation of this, which is by Changnyeong Heruka, by the time of Changnyeong Heruka, there were already many of these tuku, institution tukus, are already running around, for sure. But it wasn't yet so definitive as it is today. So by the 15th, 16th century, the tuku phenomenon, you could say, is quite pervasive already. So in a way, you can say that this is also Changnyeong Heruka's way of presenting resistance towards the increasing. Anyone who has any salt to them, is reincarnation of some great being. Then it's like this becomes theism. Like, what does that leave the rest of us with? So chapter 28, continuing with the Tseringma, these 5 spirit beings, the 5 sisters, local deities of these mountain range. Though born in the range of snowy mountains, you are not tainted with worldly faults, because you are blessed by Naropa's lineage. You are an extraordinary one who underwent austerity. a supreme healing medicine for the sickness of beings, object of veneration, bright like the sun and moon, you who are renowned as the Lord Mila, Father Repa, with respect I pay homage. Yeah, so here, this is clearly Changnyeong Heruka, the compiler, right? Started this chapter with this homage to Milarepa. In the snowy mountain range of the north on the border of Tibet and Nepal, this area, like Lapchi is one of the areas where Milarepa spent a lot of time in, on the border between Nepal and Tibet. Where the people speak different languages, there is that glorious land at the prosperous place between Jin and Dingma, was a magnificent marketplace where one could get anything that one wished. It was a palace of the Naga king Dungdra, a place where wealth and riches flourish naturally. So Nagas are these subterranean spirit beings, often serpentine, imagined to be snake-like or dragon-like. And in particular, it is said that they are also guardians of wealth. So to compare this marketplace to the palace of the Naga king Dungdra, where wealth and richness flourish naturally. So it was a very prosperous marketplace. People speaking different languages means, in practical terms, traders came from everywhere and exchange of goods, what we would call luxury goods. So this is in that place. On the east side of a jewel-like rock that looks like a majestically poised lion, and on the left corner of the noble lady Lamentashi Tseringma, so this is the deity, Tashi Tseringma. So here, the footnote tells us, in Tibetan culture, mountains are often personified and themselves referred to as the deities that are associated with them. In this work, the name Tashi Tseringma refers interchangeably to both mountain and the deity. So here is talking about mountain. The mountain, Lamen Tashi Tseringma. In the center of the encircling crystal dwellings of the snow mountain deities, there lies the Menlung Valley where the Mayang River flows. There, on the banks of Lohit River, in a solitary retreat in the Menlung Valley of Chuwar, a place with great blessings, the great Repa Lord, the Yogi Mila, was residing, meditating one-pointedly in the yogic practice that is like a flowing river. In the first summer month of the male water dragon year, at midnight on the 8th day of the waxing moon, 18 great demons came, leading all of the devas and ghosts of phenomenal existence. They exhibited miracle displays, magical displays, and omens such as storms and earthquakes. Among those demons, there were 5 terrifying, malevolent Rakshaksha females. Rakshaksha are like giants, who displayed a variety of hideous forms and attempted to disturb Milarepa's meditative concentration. When this happened, the Jitsun sang this song of realization, of summoning the army. And so he sang this song to these deities, to these Dakinis, to these kind of apparitions that arose to disrupt his meditation. Lord Precious Guru with the 3 kindnesses, one from Lodra, whose name is widely renowned. This fortunate one fervently prays to you, Father, from unmanifest space, consider me. Consider me means like pay attention to me, turn your attention to me. He's addressing his teacher, Marpa. Marpa is from this area called Lodra. And so the three kindnesses is the kindness in the form of giving empowerments, kindness in the form of giving the reading transmission or the oral transmission, and kindness in the form of giving guidance and instructions on how to practice. And so, Guru is said to have these three types of kindnesses. To this solitary place where Chuva of Jin, I, Repa Yogi from Tibet, came to meditate with single-pointed concentration. When experiences arise from gathering the dhatus, I see any kind of amazing shows. So dhatu, in the different contexts, it's referring to different things, but here it refers to the subtle energy called prana, or winds. During yogic practice, when the pranas move and gather in the nadis, in the kind of different locations in the channels, it causes various appearances to arise for the yogi. So in more advanced meditation, you basically, you could say it's like hallucinations would arise. Yeah, and it's natural that these hallucinations would arise. The issue, the point isn't so that you avoid the hallucinations. The point is that when the hallucinations arise, what do you do? And how do you break through to the other side, Yeah. So when experiences arise from the gathering of these energies, I see any kind of amazing shows. In general, the ghosts of phenomenal existence are assembled here without any left out. Then in particular, the 5 ladies, these apparitions, show themselves with hideous forms and seek to harm me with malevolent power. They try to disturb me with obstructions. One lady is like a smiling skeleton. I see her lift Mount Meru into her lap. One's face, like a jackal, is red, dripping with blood. In a single gulp, I see her swallow the ocean. One is utterly fearsome with the Lord of Death's form, crashing the sun and moon like a pair of cymbals. One lady, smeared in ashes, roars with laughter. I see her throw the stars down to the earth. One is ravishing with the form of a goddess, a lady whom one never gets enough of seeing. I see her smile and try to seduce. Yeah, so here, he is singing about what he is experiencing. Yeah, there are hallucinations, yes, but it's not like either or, which is a way of also instructing us to the way we are going to regard what we call reality that is around us. If they seem very real, then we need to remind ourselves. Part of that reality is the result of our overlay on the reality. Right? Our experiences, our expectations, our conditioning. So that one food, the same food, can be attractive and repulsive to 2 different persons, or even to the same person, depending on when. One piece of music, can be attractive and repulsive, to depending who you are and what mood you are in. So whenever we feel very solidly, this must be surely what it is. That is when we have to remind ourselves that Yes, for me. And then more importantly, that for me is not fixed. It can be changed. But often we don't believe that. On the other end of this, this point is, and when you think that it is all just made up by you, I think you also need to balance it out to the other side. As in here, it's ambiguous, you know. These Tseringma deities, are they really out there, or is it Milarepa's own? Here, it's like, no. It's also clear that it's not just Milarepa's own, you know, thinking up or his own hallucination, because there is the Tashi Tseringma five sisters. Then, of course, if you begin to go in that direction and you go too far and you think, oh, there's the Tashi Tseringma five sisters there. That is when you also need to then remind yourself again. Yeah, but you know, even the there that they are there, my own perception and projection, it's in the mix. I think we need to be able to see and relate to everything in this kind of balance, in this dance, you know, between real and not real. Real in one way, not real in another way. So fundamentally, Buddhist practice and Buddhist claims, I would say, it's more on how things appear to us and therefore how we react to them, rather than like an ancient form of physics or chemistry. Yeah, it's not the material world in the end that we are that interested in. Or like the main work is not in figuring out the material world. I was reading one kind of an article about how, you know how we normally translate the five skandhas, the five aggregates, as form, right? And then feelings, right? Perception, mental formation, and consciousness, right? And this article points out that actually what we call form, right? In fact, it's in some ways it's a mistranslation. It's not form, it's appearance. Yeah, it's appearance. Because in the end, the Buddha is not so interested in like physical form itself. Physical form don't give rise to suffering or happiness. It's appearance. Yeah, it's appearance. Appearances. Yes.
In regards, I guess it's more of a basic question. In terms of form, we say appearance, and there is a kind of leans into visual appearance or the forms of things that we perceive, but it's also the form of the content of what we hear.
Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. These are all appearances.
Those are appearances in terms of the that is, there is the sound, there is the light in its pre-form basis. That is, these are just interactions or communication with the phenomenal world. But when it's like I hear a sound,
Mm-hmm.
and I say, and I understand that as a sound of a bird, that identity is the form that's
the appearance.
that form. The
Yeah.
appearance of that sound is bird,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But times where if it otherwise we need that translation of the sensation
Yes.
in some form.
So it's the experience that the Buddha is
Yeah.
it's concerned or interested in having us lean in and look more closely at.
Right.
Yeah.
And try to piece it together as to
Right.
understand. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify
So
that.
even when we talk about the four elements, for example, as constitution of what what this form is, right? We should be careful not to like conflate that with like Greek notions of the elements. Yeah, in Greek notions of the elements, they are seen really as like the building blocks of the physical world, and they're interested in the building blocks of the physical world, like physical atoms of wind, fire, water, and air. Here it's like, no, it's the quality of solidity that we experience, the quality of fluidity that we experience, the quality of heat that we experience, and the quality of movement that we experience. These are the Buddhist four elements.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's our experiences, what appears to us, yeah, all that is intricately tied.
Yeah, the other thing that occurs to me is that using sound as an example,
Mm-hmm.
at any given time, there's actually a million sounds going on around you,
Mm-hmm.
but there's only the ones but it's only form when you go, ah, that one.
Yeah, yeah. You perceive, right?
The one you pick up on.
You pick up on, and because you perceive it, you objectify it.
Yeah, and the way I find that interesting is because it makes you look at how much time we spend not noticing. How much we screen out, kind of habitually we screen out
Mm-hmm.
so much of the world because we're
Yes.
yeah.
EBS Zoom hosting said something.
That's a good one.
What?
That was me. I mean, when Mick was talking about birds and you were talking about appearance and perception, I was thinking, okay, what if it's not a bird? What if it's a deer who opens his mouth and bird song comes out?
Well, you never know.
That makes me think of the American Indians who would could make their sounds like birds. That's how they would alert people. If they were hunting someone, or if they were, in the grass, they would do a bird sound, and that's how they talk to each other. Interesting.
Yeah, so the Buddha isn't in the end interested in, is it a bird or a deer? But the Buddha is pointing us to saying, whether it's a bird or a deer is based on your experience of that. Which is not to say, like it's absolutely not important whether it's a bird or a deer. It's important on another level. Just don't look to the Buddha's teachings to fulfill that function, So if you are a zoologist, don't look to the Buddha Dharma for, for zoological reasons. There is an important difference between a bird and a deer. Yeah, so the Buddha is always pointing us to understand the mechanics of how experiences arise. And when perception arises, when sensation arise, when more fully formed concepts that arise surrounding perception, surrounding awareness, surrounding sensations. When that arises, what is the quality of that when it arises? Do we become frozen? Do we lose, control, and it's just drawn in? What Buddha wants us to see and to pay attention more closely to, and to get familiar with this process. This is what the practice is. But not, be careful, but not by thinking about it, which we are somewhat good at, thinking about it. There's eating and there's thinking about eating.
Right.
And a lot of times we are very good at thinking about eating. Not so good at eating. So Milarepa's style is all about, eating. There are also emanations of yakshas. Yakshas are these flesh-eating demons. I see them reach out disembodied arms. I see them shake all the plants and shrubs. They rearrange the earth, rocks, and mountains. I see pits surrounding me in the 4 directions. I see the 4 borders guarded by giants. I see the sky filled with fire. I see the earth filled up with water. The spirits that fill up the surrounding space, I hear the thunderous, malevolent roars. With voices that are fearful and discordant, they shout, "You can't stay here, go away." They shower my body with disease and illness. They shout, "We'll tear your mind from your body." When hindrances such as this arise, so whatever our equivalent of these demons, in the modern contemporary life that you lived in, in Little Rock or Asheville or wherever, we have the equivalent of these types of demonic, so to say, arisings. It says, then here, when hindrances such as this arise, gurus, you who are endowed with blessing, and idam deities who grant the siddhis, the accomplishments, dhakas who are naturally present, dakinis who reside within basic space, and dharmapalas, dharma protectors who guard against hindrances, you are my support, so I summon you to battle. Marshal the forces of miraculous power. Bless the body and speech of this yogi. Sages, with your wrathful dress, bare your fangs and dreadful visage. Males and females with your awesome wrath, some of you have bodies of the Lord of Death, he with form most haughty and insolent. Assembly of wrathful ones filling the sky, your mouths let out lightning and tongues of flame. Thunderclaps of mantras roar, make rain of hung and put come down. With 12 long roars of forceful laughter, you drive away the army of obstacles. Outer obstacles of body are cleared externally. Inner obstacles of mind are cleared from within. Bad conditions are transformed into the path of awakening. Throw these evil demons down the river. Do you hear me, assembly of Dakinis and Idams? I beseech all of you superior beings. So here, as these experiences arise, right, then he is using, he's turning these. He recognizes that these experiences arise, they arise in his mind. And so then he recognizes that to overwhelm them, you overwhelm them in your mind. So he's invoking the wrathful deities, which he understands to be basically his own mind. Right? That is the venue to subdue these demons. Not there, not out there. You could say like a shamanic, in the negative sense of the word. I mean, there's so many ways to use shamanic, but here, in the negative sense of the word, as in a theistic, a subject-object would be, do things out there, right, to turn away the demons. Yeah, but here, Milarepa understands that, the venue in which happiness and suffering is taking place, and in this case, the dread and the fear is arising in his own mind, and therefore he has to subdue them in his own mind. And he invokes the blessings of his gurus, of his teacher, to help him overcome this. Thus the Jasun proclaimed this song of realization, fervently supplicating the Guru and Idams. Then the horde of ghosts, led by the 18 great demons, thought, with the way this yogi has just spoken, is he concerned at all? Some concepts have arisen in his mind, and it seems he is, and so we will have a chance to contend with him. We are somewhat pleased by this, but since we still do not know the extent of Milarepa's meditative experience or inner confidence and realization, we will try to intimidate the Jitsun with more frightening and terrorizing speech. We must find out what fearless confidence of view he has. So now, they say we need to test him. So again, like to me at least, there's always a sense of like, is this all like, as we say, him, right? Just him? Or is there some agency on the part of these demons? And I think ultimately it is both. On this end of the path, meaning the beginning end, your experience of these demons or problems will be stronger on the end of they are real, they have agency. Just like COVID, just like the IRS, like, they're real, They have agency, Now, you cannot pretend that they are not real and have no agency and then be problem-free. Try that with the IRS, It doesn't just go away. So it's not recommending that. But what it is recommending, what it is teaching is, or what it is like giving us like inspiration or hope is that, but as we begin to transform more and more, purify more and more our confusion, our afflictive emotions, then even as these demonic attacks arise, right, we will be able to overcome them more and more easily. So whether it's COVID, whether it's the loss of a job, whether it's the IRS, right? You can handle the problems more easily when you understand that the stress and the burden that you feel, that is totally just happening in your mind. The audit is not just happening in your mind. The virus is not just happening in your mind. That's true, That's why, like Milarepa, like to the end, right? His body would ache. He would be hungry. That he never overcame, And so from there we can learn that Therefore, the Buddha's teachings is also not given to overcome those types of challenges. Those types of challenges is part and parcel of being human, being alive, being in samsara.
Dr. Lye,
Yes.
I kind of keep thinking about this as a practical guide. So when the IRS comes knocking,
No, actually, they send letters.
that's right, but nevertheless, so a
Jehovah's Witnesses come knocking.
that this is a practical way of saying they're causing me stress, they're hurting me, but that there's hurt arising around this, and that hurt is my own, and they're just what they are.
Mm-hmm.
But and so in this way, they're kind of who's to say whether he is actually, as a function of his wisdom, is able to see these as real entities in his mind, or
Yes.
rather, and but for us lay people,
Yeah.
we start really recognizing that the stress are, say, somebody in our family is causing us, is like, well, we're not really, just as much as that we're not really kind of gluing that distress with that person, but we're just saying that stress, working with that stress
Yes.
on its own terms.
Yes.
But not so much flagellating ourselves. Why am I feeling stress?
Right.
That's a different type of thing where we kind of are making it our own.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, we're saying that stress is empty as well.
Yes.
Nevertheless, it's being experienced, but somehow there's a little bit of space in there. I'm muddling this up, but you might be able to clarify it. And
Yeah, to me, what it's saying is like, like Dashi Tseringma and these spirit like attacks, right? There are, you might be tempted to try to solve this problem in a few ways. Especially when this text was put together and composed, right? A very real option, which maybe seems unreal to us, right? Living where we live and our cultural background and everything. There, a very real solution, real as in what people would think of as a solution, is to go find an exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? And so if we follow the IRS, or if we follow the analogy, or if we have the family problem analogy, right? You get a tax expert or you get a therapist.
Yeah.
And if you think that itself is going to solve, maybe it will solve, as in it will go away, the problem. But what gave rise to the stress that came when you got a letter or when you got a phone call from the family that you've been avoiding, or you get a letter from the IRS that you're avoiding, what it triggers, the exorcist, the tax expert, the therapist cannot take away. That needs to be resolved in our own mind. And the more that is resolved in our own minds, then the more when the demons come, we are less susceptible. So you'll see as this chapter progresses, the demons, like it's like, oh, okay, you're the real thing.
Yeah.
And then they don't harass him anymore. In fact, they become his disciples. Yeah, your department chair, or in this case, if you are the department chair, then Yeah, whoever the demon might be, you know. Like, sure, you can hire a temporary fix, you know, whether it's the exorcist, the shaman, right, the therapist, you know, the text expert. Yeah, of course you need all of those things, you know. But there's another layer, which is usually that layer that which is really what's causing suffering. That layer is always arising in the mind, and in the end can only be resolved in the mind. Heart, mind, wherever.
I'm laughing because we haven't tried hiring a shaman. We should.
I don't know where you go look for them, you know, in Little Rock.
What? Where
I don't know where you look for them in Little Rock.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wouldn't trust anyone in Arkansas. That's not true.
Exorcists. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm being prejudiced.
Yeah. They usually have the neon sign of a palm glowing, right? Yeah. Yeah, so in this chapter you'll see, you know, like here, you know, clearly for Milarepa, for Zhanglyung Heruka who compiled this, these demons are not just metaphors. Yeah. And we sometimes misread this, I feel, kind of secular Buddhism or misreads this and say, oh, this is all just symbolic. No, it's... If only things were that simple, you know? If you say that the demons are symbolic, then suffering is also symbolic. And if you can see the symbolic nature of suffering, then you can say the demons are also symbolic. But if the suffering is cutting you and shredding you up, then the demons are also cutting you and shredding you up.
But if you don't see the demons in the right perspective, you're creating other problems, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. But for short-term solution, and that's why it's so tricky to get out. For the short-term solution, if you think of the demons as real, then you hire the exorcist, then the exorcist takes care of it, then you're like, oh, phew. Right? Which is why, despite all the sufferings that we have experienced, we never resolve to leave, because we always find temporary fixes and we say, oh, phew, problem solved. Not really, problem not solved. Problem is always waiting for the next opportunity to rear its head.
Yep.
But because we keep hiring quick fixes, then we misperceive what's the real enemy. So they say that, you know, when you throw this is a classic example given, when you throw a stone at a dog, the dog chases the stone. When you throw a stone at a lion, apparently never experienced this before, thank goodness, the lion launches at you. So when the way we face, you know, stones thrown at us is we chase the stone. We're the dogs. So we misperceive what the actual enemy is. We think it's the rocks. But if you are like a lion, a bodhisattva lion, you know, you go at what is propelling the rocks. And what's propelling the rocks is the mind. Another analogy is like the one that is talking about the village that set up a baby rescuing effort, by the river because babies are flowing down the river. What? Melissa's like, what's that? Oh, you have heard this analogy
I
before.
haven't heard it.
No?
No, never.
Oh, there was a village where, some like traveler came through and everyone was not around, and then he followed the sounds, and then he got to the riverside, and there's this big whole operation set up by the riverside. So the whole village, the whole town has gathered there. And he sees that, oh, they are doing this baby rescuing effort, and then he learns about all the things that they're doing, and the whole system, right? How they're rescuing the babies, who's providing the meals for everyone, and how they are funding this and this and that. And then after people showed him around and he asked all kinds of questions, people tell him all kinds of things, and they're like, and he goes, has anyone gotten upriver to see who is throwing these babies into the river, And then, ding, the people in the village is like, that's right. This is like how we handle our problems, I mean, on a good day, we have a system of rescuing babies down river, But on most days, we only look helplessly as the babies, get drowned down the river. On a good day, we have some kind of system to rescue the babies, On other days, we're just helplessly, hopelessly crying over the babies that are being drowned down the river. But in both cases, it's still not as good as going upriver to see who is throwing babies in the river. The mind, the heart. Yeah. So I think we should stop here rather than, it's about 1:30, 12:30 now.
No, this is where we're going to start.
Yes, Melissa.
Just one thing to add. I was thinking about, I don't know exactly what it was I was thinking about, but the other day I was, the phrase, the nature of, sort of like popped up into my mind really strong. Like, that's the nature of suffering. That's its nature.
Yes.
Somehow that was profound to me. Like, yeah. I keep thinking about that. Like, that's the nature. It's born in the mind. It lives in the mind. It dies in the mind.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. That is a moment of, like, we call blessing,
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, because we're so familiar with Buddhist jargon,
Yeah.
The nature of it. You never really think, but sometimes it really hits you like, that is how it is. You're like, whoa, mind blown. It's a good one, It's like, oh.
It feels like both stupid and profound,
Uh-huh.
Oh, I didn't really understand that. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a Mahamudra moment, like asking, where did it come from? Where does it remain? And then when it goes, where has it gone,
I try to hold on to those moments as long as I can. It's like, oh, please don't go away.
The thing is, they get moldy. They get moldy. Then you get mold poisoning.
And then you have to do it again.
Yeah.
That's why we're here every Sunday.
Yeah.
I think I need it tattooed, like, somewhere on my body.
Then it loses its meaning, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the problem.
yeah.
I gotta go, y'all. Love you. Thank you.
Ta-ta! Yeah, we're
Okay,
gonna
guys.
go too.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, so next Sunday, I may or may not be able to. We have a outdoor program that begins at 10 my time. In 2 hours by noon, I should be able to, but we'll see.
Okay.
But it's also the Sunday, 2 days after the second vaccine. Who knows how my immune system behaves, whether it's going to go on an all-out war or it's just going to chill,
I think it's chill.
Maybe I'll book a ticket to the Bahamas or Costa Rica for my immune system.
I would say just don't make any big plans for that Saturday.
So I've heard. So I've heard, yes. So anyway, yeah, maybe I'll see you next Sunday.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Always good to see you.
Ta-ta!
Ta-ta.
Bye.